It depends on how much they rush this.
If they vote on it before the election, you are open to expanding the court?
I'm open to considering what happens from that point on.
But don't voters have a right to know where you stand?
They do have a right to know where I stand, and I'll have a right to know where I stand before they vote.
Joe Biden getting pressed on court packing during his ABC News town hall. The former VP says he will share his opinion before Election Day, but it will depend on how Judge Barrett's nomination is handled. Marie Harf is executive director of the Serve America PAC and a Fox News contributor. Guy Benson is a political editor for townhall.com, Fox News contributor and host of The Guy Benson Show. Good of you both to join us. Thank you. Good morning to you both. And to you first, Marie, we're still having a little bit of a tough time getting a straight answer from the former vice president. Last week, he said voters did not deserve to know how he felt about court packing. Last night, he said, well, maybe they do. It's interesting because back in '83, the same Joe Biden said this was a boneheaded idea of court packing. And last night, he said this. Watch this.
So you're still not a fan?
Well, I'm not a fan. I then say it depends on how this turns out. Not how he wins, but how it's handled. How it's handled.
Marie, is he afraid that he's going to disappoint some Democrats? Is that why he's not giving us kind of this straight answer on this?
Well, Joe Biden actually has said more recently than 1983 that he's not a huge fan of this idea. But he's also making the point, Trace, that so many factors go into whether we would even consider this conversation. It's a hypothetical that is impacted by a number of different things that we don't know how they're going to play out right now. I also think that the point Joe Biden should be making more, quite frankly, is that this is actually a congressional action that Congress would have to take. During the Obama administration, for example, we saw Republican senators introduce legislation to try and take away judicial seats so Barack Obama couldn't appoint people to them. So the president matters, certainly, and I think Joe Biden will come out and say something probably more forceful on this, but it's actually congressional action that will determine whether this happens or not.
And it's a fair point, Guy, because why can't the former vice president just come out and say, look, it's a hypothetical. I don't have the votes. The votes are not there right now. Instead, we get this back and forth. Well, voters don't deserve. They do deserve. It just seems to me like, yeah, it's not really the right answer.
Well, he's called it not just boneheaded, but a terrible mistake and corruption. Then it would be something that supporters would rue the day that they did it, right? So he said this over the course of decades. So it's not just a small thing, let's see if we have the votes. It is an absolutely enormous thermonuclear event if they try to do it. And yes, Congress would play a very significant role in passing the legislation, but if he's president, he would have to actually step up and say, okay, I'm for this now. I'm going to nominate people for these brand new seats that they're going to pack the court with. So he's an equal player in this, and he's, as he said recently, the leader of their party. I am the Democratic Party, he said right now. So if he took a strong position, the same position that he's had, frankly, for many, many years, since before I was born, I think he could put an end to this. He's not doing it. He's punted again. I don't think this was a flip-flop. I think he was buying himself more time, punting it a little bit further down the line. And my guess is his clarification, if and when we get it, will be somewhat vague and non-committal as well.
Well, Bill McGurn, who's a Wall Street Journal columnist, he's also a Fox News contributor, said this morning on Fox and Friends he thinks this is the motivation. Watch this, Marie.
It's very radical, and he doesn't want to let on that that's what he would do. If he were against it, he'd say, I'm against it, and he's just trying to play games.
Play games, Maria, which means, you know, look, he wants to go left. He wants to join the Bernie Sanders coalition, but for now, he's just kind of playing games. What do you think?
I mean, the idea that Joe Biden is radical is so laughable, Trace. I actually think that the more likely answer is that he continues to believe that it would be a tricky thing to do and that it should only be considered under the gravest circumstances. Look, there's a reason also the framers didn't enumerate in the Constitution the actual number of justices. They did that very purposefully. But this idea that Republicans think that Joe Biden is some secret vessel for the left is news to the left. But also, I don't think it's borne out by his record, by how he ran during the primary. He's certainly open to progressive ideas and is very progressive on certain issues, but he's not some AOC in hiding. He's the leader of the party.
Yeah, and it's amazing to me, Guy, how the media talks about this like it's standard operating procedure, right? Instead of changing, right, and conforming an entire branch of the government, it's like, oh yeah, court packing, we're going to get to that. Your last thoughts on this, Guy?
Well, you'd have to blow up the Senate to then expand the court with new seats. It would be stunning. It would be completely radical. These are not extraordinary circumstances under which we're currently living. The Republicans, what they're doing right now is obviously constitutional and the overwhelming historical precedent. I think Marie might be onto something when she says there's at least an even case to saying, okay, maybe he's planning on court packing, he doesn't want to tell us, or maybe he doesn't want to let down a large, significant and passionate element of the base by telling them ahead of time, guys, we're not going to do this. I think the point for voters who are not on the hard left or on the hard right, the point is we shouldn't have to guess what's motivating him. We should get an answer on this. It really shouldn't be this hard.
Yeah, Guy Benson, Marie Harf, good debate. Thank you both.